Our concepts for today are on perimeter and area of squares and rectangles. If you slowly go through your thought process, perimeter is the outermost edge of a figure. It requires careful adding, and then you have a total. Area, on the other hand, if you associate that concept with arrays that we learned in multiplication, this should seem like pretty easy work for you today. So let's get started. For our first example, let's begin with this shape that only has one identifier, a 3. So your first thought should be, why do I only have one identifier? And that would be because the assumption is it is a perfect square. So if one side is 3, that means each of the additional sides is also 3. Let's begin with perimeter. Perimeter is the outside edge of a shape, the entire outside edge. We have 3 4 times. 3 plus 3 plus 3 plus 3. That would equal 12 units. Because you are very good mathematicians, you could also say 3 times 4 equals 12 units. Our next task is to find out how many square units are in this figure. So when we find square units, we need to show them in the figure. So we can make 3 lines in one direction because we see this 3 on the left side and the right side. And then we also see at the top and bottom that there are 3 units. So now we can count those units and find out how many total square units we have. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. There are 9 square units. Area we can find through length times width. And the length and width of this happens to be the same. So 3 times 3 equals 9. So we have 9 square units for this perfect square. The next example is a rectangle. And we can see that the dimensions are 2 feet by 5 feet. So first, let's establish the perimeter of this figure. So our perimeter is the outside edge. And we can see that that would be a 2 plus 2 for the left and right sides, and a 5 plus 5 for the top and bottom. And that would equal 14 feet. So the perimeter is 14 feet. Next, we need to find the area. Let's find our square units and then we can use the formula. On the left-hand side, you see 2 feet. So we know that this rectangle is divided in half. At the top, we see 5 feet. So we know that we must have 5 units vertically to make our square units. And we will pretend that they are perfectly square, even though I know that they are not. So let's count and see how many units we have. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. There are 10 square feet in this area. So 2 times 5 equals 10 square feet. The perimeter for this figure is 14 feet. The area is 10 square feet. There are 10 squares within the area of this figure. Again, we're working with another rectangle. There are 2 pairs of parallel lines and 4 right angles. The line segments are not the same length, so we know it is not a square. We will begin with perimeter. The left and right hand side is 6 meters. So we have a 6 plus 6. And again, we look at the outside edge for perimeter. On the top and bottom, we see 3 meters. So adding together all the outside edges, we have 18 meters. And that is our perimeter for this figure. The next thought is, what is the area? We need to find how many square units are inside this figure, the area. So our left-hand side says 6. So we know we have to create 6 units of measure horizontally. Now, the top has a 3 meters. So this line segment must be divided into 3 parts. So vertically, we have 3 parts. And again, I know the squares are not perfect, but for our purposes today, we are going to pretend that they are. So let's count and see how many square units are in the area of this figure. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. There are 18 square units. If we use our formula for area, length times width, we will find that there are 18 square meters. Let's multiply 6 times 3 equals 18 square meters. And you can see once again that there are 18 squares within the area of this rectangle. Our final example is another rectangle. There are 2 sets of parallel lines and 4 right angles. Now let's turn our focus to the perimeter of this shape. We know that the perimeter is the outside edge of a shape, and we must always count what the number is on that outside edge, the number of units. And in this case, we're using inches. So on the left-hand and right-hand side, we see there are 4 units. And at the top and the bottom, we see there are 5 units. So the total number of inches in the perimeter is 18 inches. I think that's fairly straightforward. So for our next part, we're going to think about the area of this figure. We see on the left-hand side there is a 4. If we think of that like our arrays, we would say there were 4 rows. So this is kind of something that we've done before. There are 4 rows, and then looking at the top figure, we see that there are 5 inches in that line segment. So it's 5 units vertically. So if we were to put this in terms of an array, it would be 4 rows of 5 objects. And that brings a little bit of a similar thought that this really isn't something so new to you. So our area, let's do the formula first. would be 4 times 5 would equal 20 square inches. And let's count and see if we're absolutely correct in that number. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. Yes, indeed, we are correct. The area is 20 square inches. So for this rectangle, the perimeter is 18 inches and the area is 20 square inches. This concludes our lesson for today. Remember, perimeter is the outermost edge of a shape or figure. It requires careful addition to find the units around that shape. Area, on the other hand, can be thought of in a similar format as making arrays for multiplication. Think through questions and then do your best work, and I think you will find the two concepts relatively easy to determine.